officially opened on January 1st, 1892, in the New York Harbor as the first and busiest federal immigration station in the United States. This was one of the first borders where immigrants were intensively screened with a mental and physical examination. In the 18th and 19th century, Americans encouraged relatively free and open immigration. This did not remain true after passing several immigration laws which were enacted to limit immigration. The goal was to prevent the entrance of undesirable people, those who would not make good citizens. Ellis Island acted as a frontier of filtering immigrants into the United States. Many left their countries to escape war, drought, famine, and religious persecution, also to search for greater opportunities in America. Each state had a responsibility for regulating immigration, and there were very few laws that governed it. Immigration was encouraged to settle America's empty lands and improve the labor force. But with the number of immigrants drastically increasing, the federal government took control of the nation's borders in 1891. There were a number of laws related to the migration of people enacted in the U.S. in the late 1800s, including the 1891 Immigration Act that centralized enforcement of immigration, extended the inspection to land borders, and expanded the list of deportable immigrants, as well as the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, which was used to restrict the number of Chinese immigrants who were seen as a threat to the American labor force. This was the first time in U.S. history where an immigration law specifically targeted an ethnic group. This was followed by the Geary Act of 1892, which strengthened the 1882 Act. From 1855 to 1890, Castle Garden, located in Manhattan, served as a New York State immigration station. Previously, in the 17th and 18th century, Ellis Island served as a Dutch oyster fishing site and a place for the public hanging of pirates. Then, a New York merchant, Samuel Ellis, purchased the island. During the War of 1812, it was fortified, then remained uninhabited. The island came into the possession of the U.S. government, and they believed that this would be a logical place for a station to process the increasing number of immigrants. Ellis Island Immigration Station opened on January 1st, 1892, and just that day, 700 immigrants passed through. Annie Moore, a teenage girl from Ireland, and her two younger brothers made history by being the first immigrants to be processed. When a ship arrived, it had to pass the quarantine inspection in the New York Harbor. The Public Health Service examiners boarded and examined all first and second class passengers. Since these passengers could afford the higher class tickets, they were spared inspection on the island. They were able to proceed through customs when they arrived, unless they showed significant signs of a medical problem or a legal complication arose. The need for immigrant inspections at Ellis Island and other U.S. immigration stations was to control infectious agents and stop them at the nation's border. These inspections also filtered out poverty, disability, and even homosexuality. Third-class and steerage passengers were ferried to Ellis Island, where they are sent for inspections. Once on the island, they filed in lines past officers who watched for a variety of serious and minor diseases and conditions, both mental and physical. Because of the mass flood of immigrants, the examination had to be brief and superficial. In that one glance, the officer had to check for 6 details: the scalp, face, neck, hands, gait, and general condition. The officers also turned back their eyelids with their fingers or a button hook to check for trachoma.
When you get over to Ellis Island, they're going to be examining your eyes with a hook. And he says, don't let them do it, because you know what? They did it to me when I fell in my pocket.
Public Health Service regulations encouraged officers to place a chalk mark indicating the suspected disease or defect on the clothing of immigrants as they passed through. Some would be marked with the letters of CT for trachoma or S for senility. If marked, the immigrant would be removed from the line and taken into a separate room for further examination. The U.S. Public Health Service also administered intelligence tests. Men, women, and children were separated by sex, standing in lines, awaiting to be asked an abundance of questions. They were asked about their ability to support themselves financially, potential destinations, their intentions for coming to the U.S., and job prospects upon arrival. They were even asked simple addition and multiplication equations, or sometimes they were asked to solve a puzzle. Immigrants who have passed the inspection are guided into the exit to the upper hall of the Immigration Service, where they would further complete the process. Although Ellis Island admitted many immigrants into the United States, there were some that were stopped at the nation's borders. There are many reasons that one would be detained and not admitted. No money, likely to become a public charge, or mental defects that could make someone unemployable. Women and children were detained until their husbands or fathers arrived. The most common reason for detainment was incurable and contagious disease. Immigrants who did not pass the inspection were transferred to the Ellis Island Hospital for treatment and observation. Detention at Ellis Island could last weeks. Some were even sent back to their homelands, and some never even made it out. Nearly 3,500 people died on Ellis Island while in operation. Federal employees of Ellis Island extorted money from detained immigrants by threatening them with deportation. A special board of inquiry was used to fully determine if an immigrant was admissible or detainable, and then approved by the Secretary of Labor. Ellis Island was beginning to be known more as a detention center for potential deportations than an entry processing center that it was created to be. This is why many refer to Ellis Island as the Isle of Tears.
Oh me, oh my, say when you get the blueses.
In the 1920s, Congress passed a series of immigration quotas. The quotas were applied on a country-by-country basis and had restricted immigration from some parts of Europe. Immigration to the U.S. fell from around 1 million people a year to 150,000 people a year. This was also due because of the outbreak of World War I and the Great Depression. Reduced immigration was regulated with several cultural and economic goals in mind. One economic goal was to reduce the number of lower-skilled workers in the U.S., therefore allowing manufacturing to grow in the direction of higher-skilled activity. Another reason was to boost wages of U.S.-born workers, in particular white U.S.-born workers. Because of the decrease of immigrants, Ellis Island had to close in 1954. Ellis Island set the standard for processing immigrants. The long inspection process reflects on the immigration process today. Similar principles of immigration apply now: reunification of families, protection of refugees, and admitting immigrants that have beneficial skills that would improve the economy. The U.S. will grant permanent visas of various types each year. Once a person gets an immigrant visa, they become an LPR, or Lawful Permanent Resident. This is also considered getting a green card. An LPR can apply to nearly all jobs and can remain in the country permanently even if they are unemployed. After living in the U.S. for 5 years, they can apply to become a U.S. citizen. The applicant has to be 18 years old, be a continuous resident, demonstrate good character, and pass English, U.S. history, and civic tests. 12 million immigrants were allowed through Ellis Island into the U.S. from 1891 to 1954. The 12 million immigrants make up 70% of all immigrants that came to America in the 18th and 19th century. Today, Ellis Island is part of the Statue of Liberty National Monument and is accessible to the public. The north side of the island is the site of the main building, which is now a National Museum of Immigration.